I refused to co-sign a mortgage for my brother's new house. Still, he and my parents used my information to set up the deal. Then they ambushed me with lawyers and legal documents, forcing me to sign again. I'm Adrian, 32 male, and I just got out of the army after 12 years. Did 3 tours overseas, saved every penny I could, and used my GI Bill to get an MBA. Now I work as a financial consultant making decent money. Not rich, but comfortable. I own my house outright, drive a paid-off truck, and have about 6 figures sitting in various accounts because I'm not an idiot with money. My younger brother Colby is 25, and the exact opposite of everything I just described. This dude has never held a job longer than 8 months, lives with our parents, and thinks the world owes him something. Growing up, there were always different rules for this guy. The pattern was set early. I was the responsible one who had to earn everything. Colby was the free spirit who deserved everything. While I was mowing lawns in 100 degrees heat, Colby was inside playing Xbox because he gets overheated easily. While I had a strict 900 p.m. curfew, Colby could roll in at midnight because boys will be boys. While I was busting my butt through high school, working part-time jobs and getting good grades to secure that military scholarship, Colby was skating by with C's and spending weekends getting wasted at parties. But somehow, I was the one who got lectures about responsibility. The military straightened me out real quick. But my brother, he dropped out of community college after 1 semester because it was limiting his creative potential. Translation attending class was cutting into his Call of Duty time. Since then, he's cycled through jobs at GameStop, Target, some MLM nonsense, selling energy drinks, and most recently as a server at Applebee's. Each job ended with some dramatic story about how his talents were being wasted. Here's where it gets good, though. About 3 years ago, while I was on my final deployment, our parents started having financial difficulties. Dad got laid off from his insurance job, and Mom's hours got cut at the dental office. Being the responsible son, I started sending them $1,200 a month to help with bills every month like clockwork, because I thought that's what you do for family. Yeah, screw that. Colby, meanwhile, was still living in their basement, rent-free, contributing exactly $0 while blowing his Applebee's money on designer sneakers and weekend trips. The basement setup was his temporary situation going on 4 years now. My cousin Lucas was the only one who ever called this stuff out. Lucas is a year older than me, also military Marines, and we've always been tight. He was the one who told me straight up, "Dude, you're enabling them. Cole's never going to grow up if you keep letting him coast." Lucas was right, but I figured family is family. You know, I should have listened to him. Lucas had a way of cutting through nonsense that was both hilarious and brutal, like when Colby posted some inspirational quote about hustling. Lucas commented, "The only thing you're hustling is your way back to your parents' basement." Lowell, you know that moment when you just stare, suddenly look at how things were, feel stupid, and end up with a surprised Pikachu face? Yes, because now I realize how I was taken advantage of. Every birthday, every Christmas, every emergency, somehow my wallet was the solution. The resentment was building, but I kept telling myself this was temporary. Colby would eventually grow up, get his stuff together, and stop being a financial vampire. Well, I was wrong because things were just getting started. About 18 months ago, Colby started posting pictures on Instagram with this chick named Kylie. She had that wannabe Instagram model look. Overly done makeup, lip fillers, the whole package. The girl had more red flags than a communist parade, but Colby is a S. Dude was absolutely smitten. "She's incredible, Adrian. She totally gets me. She sees my potential. Yeah, she figured out he came from a family with money, meaning me, and decided to sink her claws in." Her Instagram was exactly what you'd expect. Pictures of her at expensive restaurants. She definitely couldn't afford designer handbags that were probably knockoffs, and inspirational quotes about manifesting your dreams and not settling for less than you deserve. The girl had 10,000 followers but couldn't spell entrepreneur correctly in her own bio. Peak influencer material right there. Her feed was a masterclass in fake it till you make it lifestyle content. About 8 months into this relationship, Colby calls me up all excited. "Adrian, I'm thinking about proposing to Kylie. I found the perfect ring. The ring cost $8,000. Bro was making maybe $1,400 a month at Applebee's, but somehow thought dropping $8,000 on a ring was financially sound. I tried to talk sense into him. Colby, are you serious? You barely know this girl. You can't even afford your own apartment. Maybe slow down a bit." His response, "You just don't understand. Love, Adrian. When you know, you know." Besides, Kylie's dad owns a construction company. We're going to be set. Red flag number 2 million, but whatever, it's his funeral. The fact that he saw his girlfriend's family as a meal ticket should have told me everything I needed to know. The engagement party was a disaster of epic proportions. Colby somehow convinced our parents to let him throw it at their house. But instead of a backyard barbecue, this thing looked like a magazine shoot. Professional photographer, fancy catering, premium refreshments. There were easily 70 people there, and I recognized maybe 10 of them. Kylie showed up in a white designer dress, posing for pictures and acting like she was already the star of her own reality show. Every conversation with her was about wedding planning, how she deserved the best, and how her vision was non-negotiable. This chick was treating her relationship like a business merger, which I guess it was. That's when Colby pulled me aside and dropped the bomb. The big fart at this point. "So Adrian, we need to talk about the house situation." House situation? What house situation? Turns out Kylie had decided they needed to buy a house immediately after the wedding, not rent an apartment like normal people starting out. Nope. They needed to buy a $400,000 house in the suburbs with a pool and a 3-car garage, because that's what successful couples do. The kicker, they wanted me to co-sign the mortgage because Kylie's credit was apparently temporarily impacted by some misunderstandings with credit card companies, and Kylie didn't have any income to speak of. Misunderstandings with credit card companies. That's Colby speak for, I maxed out every card I could get and stopped paying them. I literally laughed out loud. Bro, calm down. Did you just say you want me to co-sign a $400,000 mortgage for you? Have you lost your mind? Oh, come on, Adrian. You know we're good for it. Kylie's dad is going to give me a job at his company making 6 figures. We just need someone to help us get started. I looked at this dude, my 25-year-old deadbeat brother who'd never lived independently, and had just gotten engaged to a wannabe influencer after 8 months, and he genuinely believed I should put my financial future on the line for his fantasy life. Colby co-signing a mortgage means I'm legally responsible if you can't pay. If you default, it destroys my credit and I could lose everything I've worked for. But we won't default, he said. This is what family does, Adrian. They support each other. That phrase, "this is what family does," was about to become the bane of my existence. The entitlement was staggering in Cole's mind. My decade of military service, my education, my career success, all of that existed solely to fund his delusions of grandeur. After I said no to the co-signing idea, Colby went on with the manipulation campaign. It started subtle little comments during family dinners about how I was holding them back from their dreams and how some people don't want to see their family succeed. Then Kylie joined the effort. She started making passive-aggressive posts on social media about family members who have money but won't help the people they claim to love. She'd tag Colby in these posts with crying emojis and heartbroken faces. Real mature stuff. Her Instagram stories became a masterclass in manipulation. Subtle digs about selfish people mixed with pictures of houses she wanted, always with captions like, "Someday when we find people who actually support us." The worst part, my freaking parents. Instead of telling Colby to get his act together and build his own credit like a normal adult, they started pressuring me too. Adrian, honey mom would say during our weekly phone calls, "Colby just wants to build a life with Kylie. Maybe you could help them get started." Dad was more direct. "Son, your brother is trying to build something here. Family needs to help each other take that next step." The family group chat became a nightmare. Colby would send pictures of houses with captions like, "Our dream home. Just need to work out the financing." My parents would respond with heart emojis while I was expected to just what volunteer. Lucas was watching all this from the sidelines and finally called me up. "Adrian, you realize they're all ganging up on you, right? This isn't about helping your brother. This is about enabling his delusion that he deserves a $500,000 lifestyle without putting in any work." I know, man, but it's hard when it's your whole family. Your whole family is using you as a bank account. When's the last time any of them asked how you're doing? Bro had a point that hit like a sledgehammer. The pressure campaign escalated over the next few weeks. Colby started sending me Zillow listings of houses he and Kylie were considering. These weren't starter homes. They were 4-bedroom minis with granite countertops and professional landscaping. The cheapest one was $385,000. "Oh my God, we found our dream home." Kylie would text me along with pictures of some suburban palace. "The seller is motivated, but we need to move fast. Can you meet us at the mortgage broker this week?" Leave me alone. I started getting calls from random numbers. Mortgage brokers. Colby had apparently given my contact info to, assuming I'd already agreed to co-sign. These people would call me talking about your brother's loan application and asking about my income and assets. The audacity was incredible. Colby was out there telling mortgage brokers that his brother was co-signing his loan before even getting my consent. He was filling out applications with my information and setting up meetings like it was a done deal. When I confronted him about it, he acted like I was being unreasonable. I was just getting the paperwork ready so we could move fast when you agreed. Time is money, Adrian. When I agreed, dude, I never agreed to anything. But you will, right? I mean, you can't let your little brother be homeless. Come on, Adrian. We can. Colby, get the hell out of my face. Homeless. The dude was living rent-free in our parents' basement with a gaming setup that cost more than most people's cars. But somehow, in his logic, not buying him a $400,000 house was equivalent to making him homeless. This is when I should have cut contact. But I kept thinking, maybe I could talk sense into him. Nope, because this idiot wasn't taking no for an answer. Things came to a head at Sunday dinner at my parents' house. This had been a weekly tradition since I got back from deployment, but this particular Sunday felt different from the moment I walked in. The energy was off. My parents kept exchanging nervous glances. Colby was unusually quiet, and there was this tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for something. Colby and Kylie were already there sitting at the dining room table with papers spread out in front of them. My parents were hovering around looking nervous. Adrian Colby jumped up. Perfect timing. We need to show you something incredible. Kylie was practically vibrating with excitement, her phone already out filming what she probably thought was going to be some heartwarming family moment for her Instagram story. So we found it. Colby announced the perfect house. Everything we've ever dreamed of. He started showing me photos on his phone. A massive colonial-style house with a circular driveway, professional landscaping, and what looked like a chandelier in the entryway. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, finished basement, 2-car garage, and get this, it has a freaking pool and a hot tub. Kylie nearly cried when we saw it. Kylie nodded dramatically. It spoke to my soul. Adrian, this is where we're meant to start our family. They'd been engaged for 4 months and she was already talking about kids. The listing price is $425,000. But our realtor thinks we can get it for $400,000 if we move fast. Colby continued. We just need to get the financing locked in this week, brother, I said carefully. We've talked about this. I'm not co-signing a mortgage. Period. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Mom jumped in immediately. Adrian, honey, maybe you should hear them out. They've done their research and Cole's been working so hard to get everything together. Dad nodded. Son, your brother is trying to build something here. Kylie leaned forward, putting on her most sincere expression. Adrian, I know we haven't known each other long, but I want you to know that I love Colby more than anything, and I love this family. When we get this house, you'll always be welcome. You could even stay in the guest room whenever you want. How generous. Look, I said, I understand you want to start your lives together, but co-signing a mortgage is a huge financial risk. If something happens and you can't make the payments, I'm legally responsible for the entire loan. That could cost me everything I've saved. Plus, look for something cheaper. Why the hell do you want to start in a freaking mansion? Cole's facade started cracking. Nothing's going to happen, Adrian. We're not going to default. Why would you even think that? Because you've never lived on your own. You work part-time, making maybe $1,400 a month, and Kylie doesn't have a job. I'm building my brand, Kylie snapped. I'm an entrepreneur. I am. Taking selfies isn't a job, Kylie. The room went dead silent. Excuse me. She looked me up and down. Cole's face turned red. You know what, Adrian? He stood up, his voice getting louder. I'm sick of your attitude. Just because you were in the military doesn't make you better than everyone else. Just because you make good money doesn't mean you can look down on people who are trying to build something. I'm not looking down on anyone. I'm being realistic about a $400,000 financial commitment. It's not about the money, he shouted. It's about family. It's about believing in me for once instead of always expecting me to fail. And there it was, the victim card. According to him, my refusal to co-sign a massive mortgage wasn't about financial responsibility. It was about me being a terrible brother. My parents looked at me like I was breaking their golden boy's heart. Kylie was wiping away what I'm pretty sure were fake tears. The whole room was looking at me like I was the jerk. That's when I realized something important. They weren't asking me to co-sign a mortgage, they were demanding it. "Let me make things crystal clear," I said quietly. "I'm not co-signing your damn mortgage. Deal with it and move on. End of discussion." He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed Kylie's hand. "Fine. Come on, babe. Let's go. Some people are just too selfish to help their own family." As they headed for the door, Kylie turned back with this smug little smile. "Don't worry, Adrian. We'll find another way." After they left, my parents spent the next hour trying to convince me to change my mind. They threw out every guilt trip in the book. But the one that really got me was when Dad said, "Son, Colby looks up to you. If you don't help him now, he might never forgive you. Is money worth it? Losing your brother?" I looked at my father and realized he wasn't just enabling Cole's delusion. He was actively participating in it and the guilt trip, the same BS since childhood. That night, Lucas called me. "Let me guess," he said. "They ambushed you about the house thing. How'd you know?" "Because I got a call from your mama asking if I could talk sense into you about helping the little prince." "They're making calls, Adrian. This isn't over." He was right. This was just the beginning. For 2 weeks after that disastrous family dinner, I heard nothing from Colby or my parents. Radio silence. I actually started to think maybe they'd accepted my decision and moved on. Colby giving up that easily was like expecting a shark to become vegetarian. Then out of nowhere, Colby texted me, "Hey bro, I've been thinking about our fight. You were right to be cautious. Can we talk? No house stuff, I promise. Just want to clear the air." I showed the text to Lucas. "Bro, this reads like a hostage note. Colby doesn't use words like cautious. Heck, I'm not even sure he knows what it means." Then he added $10, says Kylie wrote this while Colby was picking his nose. But I wanted to believe my brother was capable of growth. Maybe getting told no for once had actually made him think about his approach. "How about dinner?" Cole's next text read, "My treat. We can go to Sullivan's." Remember how Dad used to take us there for good report cards? Sullivan's was this upscale steakhouse downtown where our family used to celebrate major occasions. The fact that Colby remembered this detail and was willing to pay for an expensive dinner seemed like a genuine peace offering. So I agreed to meet him there the following Tuesday at 7:00 p.m. 3 days before the dinner, something weird happened. I got a call from Sullivan's asking about catering arrangements for my business meeting. Business meeting. The reservation is under Dalton for Tuesday evening. Private dining room for 12 people with AV equipment set up. My blood went cold. 12 people, AV equipment. Lucas insisted on coming with me. "I'm not letting you walk into whatever this is alone. I'll be at the bar 30 minutes before your meeting. If things go sideways, text me and I'll bring the cavalry." "What do you mean the cavalry?" "Grant, your lawyer already called him. Also ordered wings at the bar because if I'm doing surveillance, I'm doing it right." The day before the dinner, Colby sent me a series of increasingly suspicious texts. "Dress nice tomorrow. Business casual. Bring your ID and maybe some financial documents. Just in case we need to verify anything. Come alone, please. This needs to be between us." That last one sealed it. Colby was definitely planning something. I spent that evening preparing for war. I made sure Lucas had the restaurant's address. I also called Grant. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. Though, it sounds like your brother might be planning to ambush you with some kind of legal document. Grant said, "Whatever happens, don't sign anything. Call me immediately." Tuesday evening came, and I arrived at Sullivan's at 6:55 p.m., feeling like I was walking into a trap. The hostess led me through a corridor toward the private dining rooms. Stopping at a door marked Executive Conference Room, I took a deep breath, started voice recording on my phone, and opened the door. The scene that greeted me was like something out of a corporate thriller. If corporate thrillers were about family fraud, the room was set up like a boardroom. Long conference table, leather chairs, and AV equipment, including a projector screen. At the far end sat Colby and Kylie. My parents were there too, avoiding eye contact. And seated across from them were 3 people in expensive suits with briefcases and legal pads spread out in front of them. 3 lawyers. Colby had brought 3 freaking lawyers to a family dinner. Colby stood up with this practiced smile. Adrian, right on time. Thanks for coming. I slowly pulled out my phone, made sure the recording app was still running, and took the seat at the opposite end of the table. What the heck is this, Colby? One of the lawyers cleared her throat. Mr. Dalton, I'm Claudia Davidson. Your brother has retained our services to facilitate a family financial discussion. We've prepared some documents that we believe will address everyone's concerns about your brother's housing situation. She continued, sliding a thick folder across the table toward me. I opened the folder. These weren't just co-signing papers. This was a comprehensive financial agreement that would essentially make Colby a co-owner of my assets. The primary document was titled Family Financial Partnership Agreement. It laid out terms where I would not only co-sign Cole's mortgage, but also provide ongoing financial support for family business ventures and emergency situations. This is insane, I said. This document would give my brother access to my savings accounts, investment portfolios, and decision-making power over my financial future. Claudia nodded like this was perfectly reasonable. Your brother has explained the family situation. Given your parents' medical expenses and Cole's need for housing stability, this arrangement would formalize the family's mutual support system. Medical expenses. My parents were fine. Colby, I said, what medical expenses is she talking about? He shifted uncomfortably. Well, you know, Mom's back issues and Dad might need surgery on his knee. Davidson continued. The agreement also includes provisions for Mr. Colby Dalton to serve as your financial power of attorney in case of emergency situations, ensuring family assets are properly managed. They wanted him to have legal control over my money if anything happened to me. Interesting. I stood up. I need a few minutes to process this. Then I walked to the corner and quickly texted Lucas. Need you here now. Bring Grant. 20 minutes later, Lucas walked in with my lawyer, Grant. He was still carrying a wing sauce-stained napkin and had apparently brought Grant a drink from the bar. Hello, folks. Sorry we're late, Lucas announced. Had to finish our appetizers. Hope we didn't miss anything important. He made eye contact with each lawyer individually, then cracked his knuckles. So which one of you brilliant legal minds thought ambushing a combat veteran was a good idea? Colby was glaring at Lucas. What the heck are you doing here? Oh, just hanging around. Grant quickly assessed the situation, taking the family financial partnership agreement while Lucas stood behind me. At one point, Lucas leaned over and stage whispered to Colby, Dude, you brought 3 lawyers to steal from your brother. That's like bringing a bazooka to rob a lemonade stand. After a few minutes, Grant whistled low. Good grief, Adrian. This document is basically financial slavery. Signing this would give your brother unlimited access to your assets with almost no legal recourse for you. He turned to Claudia. I'm curious about the circumstances under which your client retained your services. Did he disclose his employment history, credit score, and current financial situation accurately? Claudia looked uncomfortable for the first time. We relied on the information provided by our client. Information that included claiming his brother had a legal obligation to provide family financial support and that his parents were facing medical bankruptcy. Grant continued, because I can provide documentation that contradicts both of those claims. I can also provide evidence that Mr. Colby Dalton has a history of job instability and outstanding debts. That's when Kylie decided to open her mouth and torpedo Cole's entire scheme. This is taking too long, she snapped. Colby, you promised me this would be simple. We have a realtor meeting in an hour and I'm not losing this house because your family wants to play games. The nerve on this woman. The lawyer's eyes went wide. Lucas actually started slow clapping. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Cole's criminal mastermind accomplice, a woman who just confessed to fraud conspiracy in front of 3 attorneys because she got impatient about a realtor meeting. Grant leaned forward. Miss Kylie Walsh, she replied, apparently not realizing she just handed them ammunition. Miss Walsh, are you aware that what you just said could be construed as evidence of conspiracy to commit financial fraud? Her face went white. What? No, that's not. Colby said his brother always helps with family expenses. He said Adrian had already agreed to help with the house, but was just being difficult about the paperwork. And there it was. Colby had told Kylie I'd already agreed to co-sign the mortgage. He told his lawyers I was legally obligated to provide family financial support. He told our parents I was just being stubborn about signing a formality. Colby, I said quietly, is there anything you want to say? His composure completely cracked. You don't understand, Adrian. Kylie's parents are loaded. Her dad owns 3 construction companies. If I don't prove I can provide for her, they'll think I'm not good enough. So you decided to commit fraud against your own brother to impress people you barely know. It's not fraud. Families help each other. You make good money. You don't have kids or a wife to spend it on. Why shouldn't you help me be happy? It's unfair. But what happened next was even worse. The lies were mind-blowing. Kylie stood up, her mask completely dropping. Wait a minute. You told me your brother was loaded. If he's not co-signing this house, where exactly are we getting $400,000? Colby turned on her with desperation. I told you I'd handle it. Adrian always comes through eventually. He just needs the right kind of pressure. Pressure? I echoed. You mean fraud and manipulation. My parents already think you're a loser, Colby. Kylie continued in full meltdown mode. I can't show up to their country club talking about some apartment rental. I need that house. The lawyers were frantically packing up their briefcases. Davidson stood up. Mr. Dalton, there are significant discrepancies in the information you provided our firm. We'll need to withdraw our representation effective immediately. As the lawyers filed out, leaving just our family, Lucas and Grant, that's when Colby snapped. Fine, he screamed. You want to be selfish? Be selfish. But don't come crawling to me when you're old and alone. At least I'll have my integrity, I replied calmly. Integrity doesn't buy houses, Adrian. No, Colby. Jobs buy houses. Kylie was frantically texting. I'm calling my dad. Maybe he'll loan us the money. Good luck with that, I said. But it's not my problem. My parents, who had been silent throughout most of this, finally spoke up. Dad cleared his throat. Son, we're sorry. Colby told us this was just about formalizing the help you give us monthly. We had no idea about any of this other stuff. Mom was crying. We never wanted you to feel ambushed, right? I was done. You knew, I said quietly. You enabled this. I stood up and looked around the room. I'm done with all of this. Brother, lose my number. Mom. Dad, we'll need to have a serious conversation about boundaries if you want me in your lives going forward. You can't just walk away from your family, he yelled. Watch me. And I walked out. But the story doesn't end there. That was just the beginning of my brother's downfall. And honestly, the revenge that followed was more satisfying than anything I could have planned. The next few weeks were like watching a controlled demolition in slow motion. Cole's entire house of cards just collapsed in the most beautiful way possible. First, Kylie. Within 48 hours of that disaster at Sullivan's, she was gone. And guess what? Not only did she break up with Colby, but she also made sure everyone knew why with the nuclear option of social media destruction. She posted this long, dramatic Instagram story about discovering someone's true character and dodging a bullet with a pathological liar. The girl aired Cole's dirty laundry to her 30,000 followers, the failed job history, the basement living situation, the fact that he'd lied about me already agreeing to co-sign the house. She even posted screenshots of him begging her not to leave. It was brutal. But here's the kicker. Turns out Kylie's dad didn't own 3 construction companies. He owned one small contracting business that was barely breaking even. The whole wealthy family thing was as much of a fiction as Colby's financial stability. These two losers had been lying to each other the entire time. At this point, I was just eating popcorn and enjoying the show. Lucas sent me screenshots of Cole's desperate social media posts along with his own commentary. One day, he forwarded Cole's post about toxic people who don't support your dreams. When Colby posted inspirational quotes about building yourself up when everyone lets you down, Lucas replied, "Have you tried building yourself up with a job?" Then when Colby posted about learning who your real family is, Lucas commented, "Yeah, real family doesn't commit fraud." Wild concept. The comment got 47 likes. Cole's original post got 7, but the real consequences were just starting. Remember those mortgage brokers Colby had been talking to using my information without permission? Yeah, that's illegal. Grant helped me file identity theft reports and sent cease and desist letters to every company Colby had contacted. When mortgage brokers started calling Colby to ask why his cosigner was claiming fraud, his already damaged credit took another hit. Then there was the lawyer situation. Davidson and Associates didn't just withdraw their representation. They reported the incident to the Bar Association as potential fraud. Colby got a formal letter informing him that his misrepresentation of material facts was being investigated. But the most satisfying part was watching Cole's job situation implode. Colby had been telling his boss at Applebee's that he was about to quit because he was coming into money and starting a family business. When none of that materialized and Colby had to keep showing up to work with his tail between his legs, people started asking questions. Turns out bro had also been borrowing money from coworkers, telling them the same lies about family wealth. When word got around about what actually happened, he became persona non grata at his own job. He got fired 3 weeks later for attitude problems and unreliability. My parents tried to play mediator at first. Mom called me crying, asking if there was any way to fix this family. Dad sent me long texts about forgiveness and second chances, but I was done with them. I told them straight up, I'll continue helping you two with your monthly expenses because that's separate from Cole's nonsense, and I will make sure he doesn't get a cent, but if you keep pushing me to reconcile with him or help him, I'm cutting you off too. They tested me on it exactly once. Mom called asking if I could just help him get back on his feet with a small loan. I hung up and stopped the monthly payments immediately. It took them 3 days to call back apologizing and promising not to mention Colby again. Lucas was proud. Finally, he said, "You've been their bank for so long." Then he added, "By the way, I may have helped speed up their realization by sending your mom a link to apartment listings in their area with a note saying, 'Adrian asked me to send these. Hope they help.'" I stared at him. "You didn't." "Oh, I absolutely did." Meanwhile, Colby spiraled hard. He moved out of my parents' house not because he was finally becoming independent, but because they couldn't afford to support him without my monthly help. He ended up in some crappy studio apartment across town. The dude was working delivery for DoorDash, posting increasingly bitter social media rants about family betrayal and people who abandon you when you need them most. Lucas made sure the family grapevine knew exactly what Colby had tried to pull, so his victim narrative didn't get much traction. It was beautiful watching someone face actual consequences for their actions for probably the first time in their life. But the drama wasn't done. Not even close. So he went quiet for about 4 months after his life completely imploded. I figured he'd finally learned his lesson and moved on with whatever was left of his life. I should have known better. The call came at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, my parents both crying, barely coherent. "Adrian, you have to help. Cole's been arrested." Arrested for what? Turns out, my brilliant brother had decided that if he couldn't get money from family, he'd get it somewhere else. He'd been running a credit card scam, applying for cards using fake pay stubs and employer references, then maxing them out before the companies could verify his employment. The scheme had actually worked for a while. He managed to get about $35,000 in credit across multiple cards before getting caught. But here's the beautiful part. One of the fake employer references he used was my company. The genius listed himself as working for my firm, making $75,000 a year. When the credit card company called to verify employment, my boss brought it to my attention. "Hey, Adrian, a guy named Colby claims he works here, says he's your brother." I actually laughed. I could have handled this quietly. Could have told my boss it was a misunderstanding and asked the credit card company not to press charges. Instead, I did something better. I called the police not to report the fraud. They already knew about that. I called to give them additional information about Cole's previous attempt to defraud me with fake legal documents at Sullivan's. I provided them with my recording of that night, Grant's documentation, and evidence of his pattern of financial manipulation. The fraud charge went from a simple credit scam to a pattern of repeated financial crimes. Instead of a misdemeanor with probation, Colby was looking at real jail time. But I wasn't done. Remember Kylie? Turns out she'd been posting about Cole's arrest on social media, calling it karma for a pathological liar and milking the drama for content. I reached out to her through Instagram. "Hey, if you're willing to testify about Colby lying to you about family wealth and the house situation, it might help establish his pattern of fraud." Of course, she was more than willing. Kylie provided the prosecutor with screenshots of Cole's lies, their text conversations about the fake house purchase, and testimony about his deception. The prosecution built a case around his consistent pattern of fraud and deception. Bro got 15 months. While he was sitting in county jail waiting for sentencing, my parents came to my house unannounced, uninvited, desperate. They stood on my doorstep crying, begging me to help him get a better lawyer to post bail, to please don't let your brother go to prison. I looked at these people who had spent years enabling Cole's nonsense, who had participated in that legal ambush at Sullivan's. Nope. Adrian, please, Mom sobbed. He's your brother. He made mistakes, but prison will destroy him. Good, I said without hesitation. Maybe 15 months of consequences will teach him what 30 years of enablement couldn't. Dad tried to push past me into the house. We need to talk about this as a family, son. We can't just abandon your brother. I blocked the doorway. You abandoned me first. You made your choice. That's not fair, Mom said. We raised you better than this. They stood there for another 10 minutes, cycling through every guilt trip and manipulation tactic in the book. Finally, I'd heard enough. You want to know what's going to happen here, I said. You're going to leave my property right now. You're not going to contact me again about anything. And if you show up here again uninvited, I'm calling the police. You can't be serious, Dad said. Try me. 2 days later, Mom tried calling me at work. Then Dad showed up at my gym. Then they started calling Lucas, asking him to talk sense into me. So I did exactly what I promised. I filed for a restraining order against all three of them. The court hearing was surreal. My parents sat there crying while I calmly explained the years of financial manipulation, the legal ambush, Cole's fraud, and their ongoing harassment since his arrest. The judge granted the restraining order immediately. Colby, Mom, and Dad were legally prohibited from contacting me, coming to my home or workplace, or having any third party contact me on their behalf. Colby found out about the restraining order while sitting in county jail. According to Lucas, he completely lost it. He tried calling me collect from jail, but I just hung up. The irony. His fraud conviction made him ineligible for most jobs when he got out. The brother who thought he deserved a $400,000 house ended up working fast food for $12 an hour. My parents lost their house 8 months later when they couldn't make the mortgage payments without my monthly help. They moved into a small rental and spent the rest of Cole's sentence struggling financially while refusing to admit their role in creating this mess. Meanwhile, I bought a better house and started dating an amazing woman who actually has her stuff together. Life without toxic family drama is incredible. These days, I sleep better at night knowing I don't have to deal with any of them ever again.